This is Dave once again from the Wolves Den saying Happy Tuesday. It's time for AIR Radio. And Jennifer Hillman will be back in just a few minutes with her guest.
Welcome to Air... whatever it is with Jennifer Hillman. Oh, by the way, you're live.
How about if I say it's Abstract Illusions Radio? And thank you, Dave. It is a beautiful fall day, and today I have a wonderful dear friend of mine, Kip Baldwin, on. And I contacted him out of the blue saying, you want to be on my show this week? And he said, sure. I just knew he had an interesting item to talk about, and it's really kind of the energy that's going on. Kip is an actor. He is into film, music, writing. He is just all over the place when it comes to expression, and I deeply appreciate his friendship. Hi, Kip. How you doing?
Good morning, Jennifer. I'm wonderful.
And when we talked briefly on chat, you said, let's talk about the power of love and the energy that's coming in to change fear into love. Or that's basically what's going on, is people are breaking up that illusion of fear.
I think for a long time, I think throughout history, as we've tried to move from fear to love, the one thing that we forgot to do is start with a new foundation. Instead, we keep rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic and spreading this love icing all over the cake instead of realizing we got to bake a new cake. And I think now what I'm seeing is people waking up to the fact that we've got to start with the foundation. We've got to build on a new house. Build our house on a new foundation. Otherwise, it'll just continue to collapse. And so we have all these groups out there that have, shifting consciousness, enlightenment, moving to love, that all have separate agendas. And what I think is going to, what is happening, what's starting to happen, is that people are realizing we need to take and focus our energies. Yes, we can all have our own path and our own focus on certain issues, but ultimately we have to start with agreeing that we've got to love one another. And whatever you want to call that, love is the force of creation. Fear is not. Fear is an illusion. Fear does not exist. So as we've built this, foundation that literally you can look around and see how it's apart from everything. It's apart from all nature, this fear-based reality we've created. And I think people are waking up to the fact that there's just something inherently wrong with what we've been doing. I think we're finally starting to be honest with ourselves. And it's really wonderful. The interesting thing for me is we're so used to the cacophony of fear and the noise and the thunder of man, and look at what I've done and how awesome I am and my bombs and my guns and my tools of conception, that we don't realize that fear is an incredibly powerful force, but it's also incredibly subtle. It's like, the weak, say gravity, for instance, it's considered a weak force. Well, without gravity, we all fly off into space. So this force, love, that's taking over, you've got to be quiet and be still to notice the change. And I think for me personally, that's been for me is just this quieting myself and seeing the change and not being so anxious to see it happen all at once like we want it to, and then realizing that the subtle changes are occurring. The language is changing. Like you're hearing, one of the most interesting, significant things I saw during the last presidential election was at the Democratic convention. And keep in mind, I think all of our systems have to be overhauled. They're all broken, politically, economically, you name it. They're not working. But the one thing that I took from the Democratic convention was every single placard that every one of the delegates held up in that audience from every state had one word wrapped around it, and that word was love. I'd never seen that before, and it just filled me with hope.
Well, it was really interesting this weekend. I volunteered at the National Fallen Firemen's Charity event, and basically what they have done is started a charity for fallen fire fighters who, starting with 9/11, and what they do is they climb the equal amount of stairs that the 9/11 first responders had to, and they actually did more. And they did it, and they raised $15,000 this weekend in Tucson towards helping the families of the fallen firefighters, but not just of 9/11. It's across the country, which was really beautiful. But the chief of the firemen said a speech that the one thing he said, until we have unity in this country, we're really just going to continue to fall apart until we understand that we're all part of a family of humanity and really look after our brothers and sisters and parents. We really are really not having a firm foundation. And that really struck me, a chord in me, because it's like we really do need that unity. Because right now, in a lot of ways, we're fighting against each other. I think there's a lot of a subtle building up of a new foundation of love. So we're not. But it's just, we really need that unity of love to really flow very consistently with a new foundation. Because I agree with you, the foundation of humanity needs to be rethought of and redeveloped.
And you know, the really inspiring thing for me, as much as it's also you kind of want to run your head into the wall when you're going, we've had really good teachers who've tried to guide us in a new direction, is the fact that none of what we're talking about is new. In fact, even in fairly recent history in this country, you look back to, say, FDR or even John F. Kennedy, there was talk about love. There was talk about global peace, which I think following, and this is why changing the foundation is so important. The forces of fear almost organically understand that we need to operate below everything. And so I think after World War II, or near the end of FDR's life, the forces of fear, the forces of war, the forces of greed, they saw where things were heading, and they became very covert in their manipulations and their control of the people that wanted to change that foundation. And whether it was something subtle as just disparaging people, ruining their reputation, or even ultimately killing someone, they were very effective in derailing the movement towards love and the movement towards peace. I think that we're starting to get that back on track, and I think we're waking up to the fact that we've got to start underneath everything. Changing the stuff on the top, like we were just discussing, isn't going to work. It's never worked, and it won't work now. And like I said, I think that there's enough groups out there now and enough people talking about this that our challenge now is to come together and start speaking with one voice.
Mm-hmm. So what are the suggestions do you have for people to really start changing their own foundation or within their community?
It sounds really stupid and simple, but it's got to start with you. You've got to believe. You've got to change yourself. You've got to change. Is perfection attainable? It depends on what. If you want to believe, as a lot of people do, that everything's perfect and we're here learning, then I guess it could be argued that everything's already perfect. But if you're striving for personal perfection, that's something that's going to be tough to attain, but that has to be ultimately your goal. And that's, for me at least, what this infinite journey we're on is really about, is that goal of being the absolute best you can be. And you don't ever know what that's going to be until you've got to that best you can be and realize, wow, I can be even better. And so much of that has to do in your daily life, waking up every morning. And like for instance, this morning I woke up and I was just thinking about anger, and I started thinking about the things we get angry about and the things we'll let upset us, dealing with the phone company or you name it, that we'll end up screaming at somebody, and you're going, where's the threat in that? Where is anything about most things that we get angry about that is worth the anger? What are we really angry about? And I just want, we're angry about nothing. And so starting with trying to daily address the fears that you have in your life, the things that hurt you, the things that make you angry, and starting to peel those layers of your own onion away till you get to your core and you find that foundation of love within yourself. That's the most important place to start. And it's very. Who is it? You remember Julia Altamar?
Yes, she was on the
before.
program. Yes.
She said something, just kind of inadvertently very astute and eye-opening for me. She said, it's all about staying in love, and she's right. It's easy to feel that ecstasy of love, that wow, this is what love feels like. It's harder to stay there, and it takes a conscious effort to stay there. Fear is kind of a lazy place. It's easier for us to fall into that. It just kind of overwhelms us and encapsulates us, and okay, I'm afraid, and I don't need to move. I don't need to do anything. Love actually takes effort. You've got to consciously say, I'm a loving person. I'm going to break away from this fear. I'm going to break away from the shadow. I'm going to be the observer that is participating, not the participant being observed in my life. I'm going to make the conscious choices I want to make the things that I want in my life real, to fulfill the love in my life. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to work on those things every day. I'm going to take time when I'm not centered, when I'm not feeling loving, and I'm going to stop in that moment and say, I'm not going to get drawn back into this reality of fear. I'm not going to live there anymore. I reject it. I reject it entirely. We have to reject it entirely, otherwise it will constantly creep back in.
And that's the real challenge, is being that aware and not letting it creep in, and really understanding and being the example for the people around you to stay in that love. And
absolutely.
That's a big part of it. It's so easy if you watch the news or if you just listen to people, it's so easy to get wrapped up back into the negative state of complaining about the society and about way things are going, that the first place you got to start is with yourself. If you're not happy with something, change it. You've got the power, you've got the options, where so many people don't have that option. You can make that first start to really be open and show what love is about.
And there's a really good exercise. I read about it first in a book. I think it was Michael Gelb wrote, and it was How to Think Like Da Vinci. And Da Vinci had this practice of when he would get angry about something, he would stop in the moment, he would write down that he was angry, and then he would start tracing it back to its source. And he would find, okay, wow, this is what I just got angry about. But is that what I'm really angry about? And then most times it's not. We're reacting to something that happened much earlier in our life, some childhood experience or whatever. And it's really important, if you want to change what is causing you to react in different situations in a fearful manner, in a way that you're not happy with yourself, you've got to trace it back to the source. Because unless you can look at that thing and take its power away, it will always find a way to creep back into you. Stopping in the moment and letting go of the anger is good. Getting to the point where you can find the source of that anger and releasing it, forgiving whatever inside yourself is causing you that pain, is even more important. And that's a really good exercise I recommend, either whether you do it on paper or just in your head. Stop and really trace back the root of all of your negative emotions. Find out where they're coming from. Trace it to the source, and you're going to feel so much more empowered, because now you know where this thing that's been controlling you is coming from. Now you've addressed it, you've looked at it, and more importantly, you've embraced it and you've forgiven it within yourself.
Yes, in fact, that's what I did last week on this very show. I traced back one of my issues to the thing, and it's like on that program, if there's any resistance, that's what you need to work on, is just allowing and accepting so you're not resisting, because that's where the negativity comes from, is the resistance.
And the resistance comes from a collective brainwashing that, whether it's been by chance or by choice or by calculation, that's taken place for several thousands of years now, where I don't want to believe that that all religion started with the goal of making us afraid. But unfortunately, that's where so much of this stopped, with this being afraid of God, being afraid of love, feeling like these are things that can either harm us or can be taken away from us. They can't. Changing that understanding, that relationship with God, is tracing back to the very foundation of, I mean, unless you go back to us being this primal beast, that's really, as far as being civilized man, where so much of our fear comes from, is this misunderstanding, misinterpretation, misdirection that we've had with regards to our relationship with the infinite, with infinity, with God, with love. We've been programmed that these things, if we don't walk and talk and behave in a certain way, that there will be retribution. I can't explain to you how crazy, when you really think about that, if you step back from what we've been taught, how crazy that really sounds. You're talking about a creator, an infinite force that you have no ability and will never have the ability to comprehend. You cannot, it's just something you have to accept. To think that this force that is all of infinity, that is all of that is love, is sitting there judging you in any way, is just such a flaw in our interpretation of what God is, because God, infinity, is singularity. God, unlike man, doesn't live in an existence of comparison, duality, where I have to have a male and a female, I have to have a good and a bad. It just is a oneness, and that oneness is what we have to keep focused on. That's where our unity is. That's what we're all a part of, is this infinite oneness, and we're on this amazing journey. We have an amazing infinite creation that was given to us to discover forever and ever and ever, for as long as we want. It never has to end if we choose for it not to. But as long as we haven't chosen, we're still part of this oneness, but we're not part of the absolute oneness where we can comprehend all of this, unless we return to the wholeness with God, the Creator, infinity. We don't. All of this dissension that we have, the good, the evil, all of this is a way that we have to exercise our free will, our choice. But only some of it's real. Only the love portion of it's real. The rest of it is stuff that we're manufacturing. The rest of it is us choosing, making, for whatever reason, the wrong choice.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've been listening to a lot of the YouTubes that Joseph Campbell did on his work, and he literally said, God is you.
Yep.
In all mythology, it actually goes back to God is you. The only one that's really punishing you isn't God, it's you. And once you realize that, you're going to stop doing it because it hurts. And there was a lot of common sense of what he was speaking about in the hero's journey, and all that he was mentioning of the hero's journey, in the sense that we have to go through this process of purification and understanding to really unite with the whole of all we are. And that's what the hero's journey is really about.
You know, Joseph Campbell, because as you and I have discussed before, you know where my journey began when I was 12 years old, and I had that experience with, being taken out and being introduced to infinity, and having this relationship with, has informed my entire life in ways that I had no possible way of comprehending it at 12, and you know, have very little, to be honest with you, have very little ability to comprehend now, but at least I have a greater understanding. Joseph Campbell was actually one of the first people that really made me feel like I wasn't completely out of my mind. Just such a brilliant, kind man. When I saw the interviews he did with Bill Moyers, I highly recommend, if you want to start your journey of enlightenment, for me at least, there's no greater wisdom source than Joseph Campbell because of his openness. In fact, I love an ancient Sanskrit saying that he, talked about with Bill Moyers, used in some of his books, where he, said, and I hope I'm not paraphrasing, but I think I'm getting it right. The person that says they know doesn't, and the person that says they don't know, they do know. Because we can't know. Anyone who thinks that they have an ultimate answer, that their way is the only way, run from them. Run from them screaming because they're a fraud. To accept that you don't know, to accept the unknown, to overcome that fear of the things that you can never know is the first step towards enlightenment.
And, that's very true. I mean, once you know, you think, when you say you know it all, you know absolutely nothing.
And you look around at the world today, and this, back to trying to bring together all the, various groups all talking about love and elevating our consciousness and becoming more enlightened. It's the same thing when I look at religion. All these religions are saying that they want love, they want peace at their foundation, that there's one God. Yet they are all saying, but my interpretation, my understanding of this one thing that we're all trying to accomplish is better than your interpretation and your understanding of this one thing we're all trying to accomplish. Stop. Just know that you're trying to accomplish that thing. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong in this. There's just this one thing. How you want to interpret it, that's beautiful. I'm not going to take away from your interpretation by having my own interpretation. And this concept that we need to recruit more and more followers for what? It's this whole concept of this illusion of ownership that we can somehow own a permanent reality, own our piece of God. That's really crazy thinking to me. So my approach to everything is that big tent, open arms. Hey, like look at the world, for instance. It freaks people out for them to think of some sort of one world order or a globe without borders. But why? Why when it can exist like this? Why not have a world where you keep your language, keep your culture, keep all the things that make you you, and this can be translated into the individual as well. But let's agree that we have a common agenda. Let's agree that we have a common agenda to promote life's process, to serve life's process, to experience life to its fullest, not survive to death, but actually live life, to care for one another, to care for all of the life here that cares for us both internally and externally, all of the systems, all of the other species that we can't live without. This ego that I need to be the only reflection anyone sees in the mirror, we've got to stop. We've got to understand that if the world were without human beings, nature would regain its equilibrium. If the world were without insects, all life on this planet would stop. Get some perspective. Step off the planet. This, for me, is the greatest thing about understanding or trying to understand or accepting that infinity is what it is. It's not because I can really grasp what that really means without making myself kind of sick to my stomach because it gets overwhelming, but because it takes me off the planet. It takes me out of the galaxy. It takes me out of the universe, and I can see all the processes and the inner workings from a distance. And I realize my tiny place in all of this and how beautiful that is. I don't need to be the most important thing. Just like the sun doesn't need to be the most important sun in the universe. It's just shining. Just shine. Just shine. That's all you got to do. Just let your light shine.
And with shining, you're actually doing a purification.
Absolutely.
If you think about it. And it's incredible the possibilities that are really around you, and possible to just hold that energy for a person without trying to maneuver or do anything with it. Just hold that energy to allow them to find their own answers within themselves, to let them vent, to brainstorm, to have that conversation. There's many people like on Facebook that will contact me and we'll just have this dialogue. And this one lady keeps telling me the same thing over and over, and I'm going, you're asking for this attention because you keep bringing it up. It's your reaction that's attracting it. She goes, oh my God, you're right. She had no idea of the loop that she had gotten herself into till I just mentioned that one thing. And she goes, you're right. I got to stop this. So
I think, it's funny you say that. With someone I'm working on a film project, I love this person. They would, every time I talk to them, it's like drama, drama, drama. Gosh, why do I keep on drawing these people into my life that cause all this drama for me? And same thing happens over and over. And I said, didn't somebody warn you about that person? They're like, yeah. And I said, and didn't somebody warn you about that person? Yeah. I said, then it's on you. It's on you. It's not these people. These people are being exactly who they are. You're the one, for whatever reason, aren't paying attention to the signs. Why, what you need to be asking yourself not is why these people are doing these things to you, but why you're doing these things to yourself. What are you trying to accomplish by drawing these people into your life and having this? Is this something you enjoy? Because you're doing it to yourself.
Yeah, it's the best question you can ask these people is, you're attracting these situations. What's your gain? What is it, for the attention, or is it some kind of validation with you? Because you're really doing it to yourself. And once you say that and they start thinking in their mind, oh my God, what is the gain? It tends to shift their energy, their thought patterns enough that they get out of it. And
that's a question that we as a collective should be asking ourselves. I ask this, all the time when I look at, from a non-judgmental place. Okay, we've got this system now where we've got 1% of the population that has almost all of the wealth. It's getting worse. And I look at these people at the top, and other than, me looking at them as basically wealth and power junkies, I'm like, how do they see this turning out? How do they see impoverishing everyone, letting people suffer, while they have so much more than they could ever possibly need, deserve, whatever?
Right.
I just want them to tell me, how do you see this turning out? What's your end goal? Tell me your end goal. Maybe I would even agree with you. Well, gosh, I'm too dumb. I didn't see how smart you were. Of course that makes sense why you're doing it. But I don't see the end goal to this. I don't see things, if we don't make this shift, I don't see things turning out particularly well for us. Not in a doomsday scenario, but just in a practical, mathematical look at things. Okay, how do we continue to grow our population indefinitely? We can't. We have to address this. How do we have an infinitely growing economy, which is what capitalism based on? You can't with finite resources. You can't do these things. Mathematically, where we're heading doesn't work. All of your wealth is worthless without the systems that you need from nature, from life, from your fellow human beings to make all of this work. So what is the end game? What are we working towards? Why are we doing the things we're doing? We're not asking the right questions. We are not asking why. We are simply focused on how things work, not why things work. We need to stop and say, why are we doing these things? What do we expect the ultimate outcome of our actions to be? If we're saying that we want a sustainable, prosperous future for as long as we can be on this planet, or as long as this planet is capable of sustaining us, for our children's children, for our children's children's children, we're not going to get there the way we're going. And it's not, again, because we're evil or anything. It's just because we're doing things that won't allow for that to occur.
And with that, as you were speaking, I was thinking of this TED Talk that I heard, and I cannot remember who said it, but it is the golden circle. And if you really want to master marketing and really put something out, when you're getting your business plan together, the center circle is, why are you doing this? What are people gaining? And what is the end result that everyone is going to gain from this? And it's just moving out. But the center question is, why are you doing this? If it's just for money, you've lost already. If it's to help humanity, you're one step closer to really getting things out there. And even though that was for a business plan, it works in the everyday too. Because you have to understand that if you answer why you are doing what you do, if you're doing it from your heart, you're doing it through love, and everyone will prosper from it in some form. It might not be monetarily. It might be just a smile on their face when they think of you. But that is bringing their vibration higher and to a better state of being. So it is the why question. And yet, so many times we can't get that answer for why. We're not supposed to know yet. So it is that paradox a little bit of what life is about.
Absolutely. But I do think there are, you like we were talking about, we can't know everything. We don't know everything. We don't have ultimate answers. There is no ultimate answer, but we can know certain whys and as we're moving along here, and going through eternity. We do have some answers, and we're just not, we're not using the information that we do have wisely, at all. And we're not learning from our past mistakes. One of the biggest problems that I see for our species right now is, the lack of intellectual curiosity that we have as we've been drawn more and more into, the frivolity that is the furnace that is driving us right now. We don't see the big picture. Everything, is compartmentalized based on where you're at in the world and what your most immediate need is, or the, whatever, power forces are informing you of history. And if we could step back, we could see, one, no one's innocent. We're ultimately all heroes and victims. And we're not doing a very good job of connecting the dots. Because if we connected the dots, we could look back through, even recent history, but you can keep going back and back and back, and you can see this pattern of building up, tearing down, building up, tearing down, doing the same thing over and over, all from this, again, fear foundation. It doesn't work. So we know what doesn't work. Now we can say, at the very least, we should try something new. Maybe it won't work either, but at least it'd be a whole new way to fail.
Right.
I mean, that at least would be interesting to me.
Well, it's interesting because I've had some moments. I've been doing lots of past life review. I mean, and it's been very interesting that I go through these periods where I'm in that flow. I'm in the love. Everything is jamming. Everything is going so well. And then all of a sudden, it's like somebody taps me on the shoulder and my mind goes blank. And I forget everything that I've learned. So I have to start over and really remember everything that's going on again. And I start laughing because I'm starting to see that pattern. And it's like, I'm beginning to say, I know that I'm loved. I know that I'm loved. That's the basic foundation that I need to form anything I do on. But it's like, it very much is interesting how it literally feels like somebody just tapped me on the shoulder and my mind went totally blank of everything that I've learned. And yet I know it. And that yet I had to take these lessons to relearn it all over again. It is, It's really bizarre.
That's reinforcing it, saying you got to remember this, okay? Best way to remember it is to learn it all.
Oh God, I've learned it so many times. It's time to write the book on it and all that. But I do understand that from every lesson, there are 360 different perspectives from everything that you can learn. So I'm just doing the full circles. I mean, I really feel like everybody has this one basic lesson, and you're just getting 360 degrees of understanding about that lesson.
And the 360 degrees is then divided infinitely into, infinite fractions of those degrees. So, we can keep going around, like you said, but it's just incrementally, and you just continue to learn more and more and more, like where, obviously where I was at 12 compared to where I was today, well, not even comparable, but even where I was, well, gosh, I mean, a month ago, 2 months ago, a year ago, I mean, I look back and I'll look at things I've written because, as you know, I've written every day religiously without fail for going on 4 years now, something about love, something about moving us from this foundation of fear to love, something about peace, something about enlightenment every day. And I look back as I've been going through doing my editing on my book. I'm like, wow, it's amazing how I can see my own evolution of thought. And again, it's just continuing to get this 360-degree view of your own beliefs, of your own core,
Yes, and ultimately, my most inner truth, which is I am love and loved. Mm-hmm. And that's the basic, what I need to end. Everything's temporary. I'm going to get through all of this. And even if I were to die, I know I'm okay. I understand the other side is bliss and peaceful, and I'm going to be okay wherever I am. I'm in a good place.
Well, and for any atheists who are listening, I don't believe, for me personally, even if I didn't believe there was an afterlife, even if I didn't believe that there was a higher power, a God, however you want to define that, I would still choose love because I've seen this existence. I see where we're going. Like I said, just from a logical perspective, it doesn't make sense to me. And I know how love makes me feel. I know how fear makes me feel. And I will choose love any day of the week. Even if you came to me and said, listen, the way we're living right now, this is how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be murdering and slaughtering each other and starving each other and hoarding and doing all of these ridiculous things that we're doing. I say, that's fine. That's good for you. It's not for me. I can't go down that path. I've been down it and I don't want to ever go down it again. So while I can love you, I can't care about what you want to be right now, because that's not who I am. I can observe you and I can love you and say, please, anytime you'd like to step out of the shadow there, I'm right here, but I'm not going to crawl in the shadow with you. I can't care about, I can love you, but I can't care about you, because caring about you draws me into your darkness, and I don't want to be in the darkness with you.
And yet for me, I don't mind the darkness because I know there's always light within the darkness. And I know I am within the silence. And that's just me. To me, the darkness is still love. I always feel a very deep, deep love within the darkness. And that's only because of my experience of when I had my head-on collision and I went to the other side, I was in the void of darkness. And that immense peace and love and connection and understanding everything in a flash of a second about love and being loved overwhelmed me to the point of being in tears. And then I came back and I said, wait a minute, I don't want to be here. I like that other side better. And they're saying, but you need to learn to have that other side exactly where you are in every moment.
Let me rephrase. I totally agree with you, because that was what I experienced, when I got to infinity, was just darkness there, because it was everything, and there was no light, there was no nothing, just everything. So it appeared dark. I think what I was more describing was shadow, was that place where there is that illusion of the absence of love, that
negativity
that we've created. Exactly. And I even try to avoid using the word negativity because, I try not to see things as good or evil, right or wrong. I try to see things as what's workable and not workable. So maybe that's the way to phrase it, is that I don't want to be in your unworkable world. Your world doesn't work for me. So while I can love you and I can care about you and your unworkable world, I don't want to be in it.
Exactly. And there's a few people that I have been a mentor to, and they go in that cycle of negativity, and they just, I can't do anything. I can't get what I want, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, then what is blocking you? Because it's you. So why don't you stop running around in circles and see how you're blocking yourself? And it's amazing when I ask them just to stop and be in that stillness, everything, they start getting the clue. It's like one woman who always is really upset. She asked to be a teacher, and now she's a teacher, and she hates it. Only because of the politics of being a teacher. It's not the actual teaching the kids. They're great. Though the kids are have this very much entitlement attitude, as she says. But at the same time, she wants to do other things related to her teaching that are more in line to make her happier. And yet she can only find work doing the teaching. So I said, focus your energy on something else other than you have to make a living. And she started running. And she just finished her first half marathon, which to me is awesome. That is really just putting her focus on something that she can do instead of really forcing herself to go in another direction work-wise. If it isn't flowing, honey, it's not time yet. You're doing something. You need to change your focus. So now she changed it to running and doing marathons, and she's achieving there, which is helping her confidence and her trust in herself again. Because when you don't get what you want, sometimes that's the damage. It's more trusting in yourself that you know what you're supposed to be doing.
And I think you gave her great advice, because I can't remember the woman's name, but every Sunday Oprah has her show now on just strong spiritual messengers. And I can't remember the person she had on this past Sunday, but she said essentially what you just said, which is that even if you're not fortunate enough to be able to earn a living doing the thing you love in your life, then outside of that earning a living, you have to, in order to be happy, find something you love doing.
Yeah, and basically now she is much happier in a lot of different ways, and we all have to make a living, unfortunately. We haven't gotten to the point where we do trade instead of having money soon enough. But you got to do what you need to do to pay the bills, and that's just reality of what we have right now. But do something that makes you happy. If it's volunteering, if it's doing a talk show, or doing, anything that makes you happy, playing tennis, golf, whatever. Any of it can be a meditative connection within yourself that your inner truth is flowing.
And I feel really, really fortunate in my life, because I'm doing, on some level, there's some aspects, obviously, of the entertainment business that I don't love, usually having to do with the financial aspects of it, which is, like dealing with financial aspects of any other, any other business. It's just kind of a hollow experience for me. But I'm still involved in the creative world, and I enjoy that. But, for me, it's like, and I tell anyone I deal with in anything, moving people from fear to love, that's my passion, that's my joy, that's my love. Just to have, I mean, my payment is one person, coming to me and having that one person and it happens daily, where they'll say, you made a difference for me today. You made me smile.
Right.
Or having somebody with, and I know you've had this happen too, with a terminal illness and, you got me through the day. I can't think I mean, if I died tomorrow, I would feel like I'd accomplished something wonderful in my life, and beyond any payment. I don't do this. I'm not on this mission because I'm getting, and I want anyone who's listening to hear this very clearly. I am not in this to make money. I'm not saying this to make money. I've never pursued getting paid to help move people from fear to love. It's what I feel I have to do. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what I love. It's the joy that I feel comes from people. It's what I feel I'm supposed to be doing above and beyond anything else in my life. I have to be doing this, and I have to be doing this right now. I get sometimes frustrated when I see the industry that's been built up around this, and I think that's been one of my motivations to try to, with other groups, start to bring together all of these differing energies that are out there, that are trying to shift consciousness, that are trying to move people to love. One, to find the frauds that are out there, and there's a lot. Two, to help people who are looking, because everybody's going to, okay, I gravitated towards Joseph Campbell as a mentor, as one of my first guides, as one of my first teachers. And, once I get over my anger with religion, I can honestly say, obviously Jesus Christ was a wonderful teacher and a magnificent being, just that got overshadowed by all the other crap that went along with church for me. So I think on some level, Christ was obviously a huge mentor in my life as well, but we're all going to gravitate towards those different voices. So giving people a place where they can easily find all of these different resources while we're all agreeing on love, and it having nothing to do with, hey, I've got a weekly seminar in 6 months, your life's going to be perfect.
Right.
Messaging.
Right.
And, send me $450 and I'll be in here and I'm going to be packing this place up. I have a hard time with that. Just like I have a hard time with, I look around at all the impoverished people and I look at, say, an institution like the Catholic Church. And you know what? God, Bono said it best. My God ain't short of cash, mister. When did God need temples and shit built to him? When did God need, your money as you're starving to be put in his coffers? When did, and I love this new Pope. I think he's actually trying to walk the walk and talk the talk, and I really appreciate that. But I will also say that the Catholic Church and almost all churches, these are ill-gotten gains. It's blood money. And in all of these riches that they took from poor people and natives all around the world, give it back. Start doing something that God wants you to do for once in some of your misbegotten lives. Really step out, walk the walk, do it. If you're going to live for love and you're going to live for God, then do it for that reason alone. You will be taken care of. I can guarantee you that. It may not be in the opulence you want. It may not be with the decadence you want, but you will have every need provided, and your life will be more fulfilling than you can possibly imagine today.
And that is such a true statement, and it goes for even more than just the Catholic Church. It goes for the U.S. government.
Absolutely.
You're supposed to be working for us, folks. Why are you just taking? I'm not seeing too much giving back. A lot of words, but not a lot of action. But I do have a few questions that I want to ask you real quick, because we're coming up real quick, because we only have got an hour for you. A lot of people in the chat are wondering what your background is, what you do for a living, and what got you to understand that your purpose really is to switch fear to love.
Well, one, if you want me to run over a little bit, my meeting looks like it might have been pushed out.
Okay,
so
good.
I can take a little bit more time. Well, I guess I should probably tell the story of real quickly of what happened to me when I was 12 years old. I grew up in a very small town called Camas, Washington, 1 mill town, 3,000 or 4,000 people at this time. This is the mid-'70s. Nobody in this town has out-of-body experiences, astral projection, nothing like this. And I'd never done any drugs or drank or anything, although I made up for that in abundance later in life. But I got home from a football game with my dad. We'd driven up to Seattle. It's about a 2.5, 3 hour drive each way. And I was exhausted. I was about 12 years old. I went to bed, and next thing I know, I'm out of my body. I'm literally staring at my body in my bed. And needless to say, I was a little bit freaked out. But it didn't stop there. Then I drifted out of the house, and I was looking down at my house. And each step of the way, I kind of there was a pause, almost as like, are you getting this? Then off the planet. Now I was getting kind of comfortable with this experience, and I felt safe. I didn't realize it in the moment or even until many years later that there was something there with me, because I had no real way to define or know that at that time. I just knew I was being taken somewhere, or I was going somewhere, and I was kind of going to go with it. So off the planet, out of the solar system, each step of the way, turning and looking back in. Are you getting this? Yeah, I got the solar system. I got the galaxy, out across the universe, out past quasars, neutron stars, black holes, nebulas, whatever you can imagine, went through it. Got to the edge of the universe, looked back in, just like on kind of to give a visualization, like the cover, I think, Time magazine a couple months ago, where they could show you a picture of the young universe where it had borders and edges. I got that. Okay, this was something finite I could take in, even as massive as it was. I got it. Then I was turned out towards, as you described, this darkness. And I went, wow, there can't be an end to anything. There's no way. What do you do? Put a wall up at the edge of the universe and there's nothing after it? Or where, and what, that wall goes on forever? I mean, how can there be an end? There can't be an end. There can't be a beginning of time. There can't be an end of time. And all of this became very real to me. And then I dropped back into my body. I promptly went and threw up. I don't know how long I was gone. And it wasn't like I was sick. I was just overwhelmed. And I did this several times. And I kept telling people about it. And they kept, basically writing me off as what a cute kid with a great imagination. But it wasn't. It was real to me. And as I've gotten older, more and more science and physics have, kind of gotten up to what I was thinking and talking about, that the infinity is a real thing, whether we can comprehend it or not. It is the only absolute that has to be. I spent a lot of years going down into the shadow world, the negative. I've had a lot of dark experiences in my life. I've been the addict. I almost drank myself to death. Literally lost 50% of my liver function. I've, done the drug abuse. I've done the, awful relationships. I've had people die. I've had just about any experience or relative experience to people. And you know what? I wouldn't change any of them, because I can now look at people when I talk to people and someone else is in distress, and they know when I say I understand. I truly do. So I wouldn't change anything in my life. I didn't really start to fully bring all the pieces of this puzzle together until after I quit drinking, until after I wanted to die. And, and I was consciously doing it. I mean, I took out a huge life insurance policy. I didn't plan on living much longer. And I said, okay, I'm going to quit drinking, provided one thing: I have a reason to live. If I don't have a reason to live, I'm going to find a quicker way out. So I really threw myself into life. I said, okay, I'm going to give this a Kip effort, just like I gave Kip effort to destroying myself. I'm going to give a Kip effort into figuring this out and seeing if I can crack through this pain that I am experiencing daily, this suffering that I am living with, this misery that I see in the world. There's got to be something that I'm missing here. And then I started reading Conversations with God, which I highly recommend the first 3 books. They were really fantastic. There's some great messaging in there about moving from fear to love. And at that point, I realized that for me, the most important thing that I needed to understand was the whole concept of being in love wasn't a singular thing. That feeling that I had when I was in love with an individual was a feeling I could have every day, every moment of my life with everything and everyone around me. That became my sole driving force in my life. It became truth to me. And the more that it became truth, the more I realized that it wasn't just truth to me, that it was the underlying truth to everything, that it was ultimately this infinity thing that I'd experienced, that it was this God thing, and that was what was out there with me. That's why I was shown what I was shown. And it wasn't until about, I guess it's been about a year or so now, I went out and I was talking with Dr. Dean Radin out at Noetic Sciences, which, for anyone who doesn't know, was founded by Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, some years back, because he had some obviously amazing experiences being an astronaut that I invite you to read more about him to find out what those experiences were. And I was talking with Dean Radin, who has written tons of books on consciousness, is doing, all of these experiments on seeing, what we understand, what things are made of, getting to the point where understanding that we're actually at a certain point made of nothing. So how does all of this interconnectedness work? And I told him this story. I was talking about doing a movie about the convergence of science, spirituality, and religion, and I told him what had happened to me when I was 12, and he looked at me and he said, "That's not a usual experience." And all of a sudden, it was like, wow, I've been walking around talking to people like, this is normal. It was just normal because it was normal to me, and it was only then that I realized that this was a truly remarkable thing, this was a truly remarkable perspective that I'd been given, and it was a huge blessing in my life. As to what I do, as Jennifer was saying, I'm a writer. I started off in the music business in 1985, played around in bands, wrote for BAM Magazine, managed artists, moved into special effects and computer animation. I have a sales and marketing company working in local and sustainable foods. I'm a film and television producer. I just produced the show Weed Country for Discovery about medical cannabis, which I'm very proud to say Sanjay Gupta sold you appropriated our storyline on using cannabis to help childhood epilepsy into his awakening about the truth about cannabis, and have several other shows that I'm working on now, as well as writing a book about this experience, and it's called The Eternal Journey of Being. And I hope to be able to share, not from a point again of saying that this is the only way, but just saying that here's how I got to where I'm at. I'm not any different than anyone else out there at all, except that I had this amazing experience given to me with infinity that gave me this perspective on life and God that I wouldn't have otherwise, that made me see how big everything is and how, from a distance, how beautiful everything is and how perfect everything is. And just saying you can get there too. You can find your own path and your own journey, and your life doesn't have to be painful and filled with sorrow. It can be, every moment of your life can be lived in love. And like I said early on, it's a daily, and work's become a bad word, but it's not. It's daily work. You need to concentrate and focus on it. Just like you focused on anything else in your life that you're doing, you have to focus on love. Otherwise, just like with anything else, you forget about it. You forget about it. It becomes weaker because you're not putting your intention and attention to it. And I know a lot of these become spiritual buzzwords: intention, attention, the secret, blah, blah, blah. It's truth. This is truth. Find your truth. Find love. Find peace. Walk out into nature. Look at the difference between what man does and what nature does. See the role that you play in life's process. See how fear affects your life adversely as in comparison to how love works in your life. You'll just start to logically, not from some guru trying to make you feel like you've got to somehow get outside your body or try to reach some other plane that you're just not quite there yet. You're where you're at now today. This is where you're supposed to be. This is the experience you've chose to be having. Make the most of it. Love it. Understand your place in everything. Don't think that you're in control of anything, because you're not. All you have control over is your love and your happiness. Find that. Find that within you.
It's interesting. And instead of work, I tend to use the word practice. Because, you can get it right, you can get it wrong, but at least you're practicing. You're keeping it going, and your intentions are of a good heart. There is so much that you said in that, and I wholeheartedly agree. If you really want to understand what life is about, look at nature. Follow, watch your animals. Wild or domestic. Even the domestic, they really know how to be love, how to respect themselves and show respect to others. It's man that kind of skewed things, and embrace it. Embrace the very nature of who you truly are, which is love. So I don't know how much more time you have to talk, Kip.
Well, I've got to go, but I would like to point out, give people something to think about. We've been on this planet, our species, as we know it, for a relatively short amount of time. Yet somehow we believe, to speak to Jennifer speaking about nature, we somehow believe that we have figured out things better than 4.5 billion years of this planet evolving. 13 billion years, give her, however, whosever interpretation of time you want to use. It's been a long time evolving. Everything here works perfectly. We're starting to wake up to that more and more, that nature for our medicines, nature for our food, all of it had it right. We need to let go of our ego. We need to let go of this thought that we are somehow more special than anything else in all of creation. It's a really crazy way to look at things. It's a very arrogant, self-serving way to look at things that really is solely fear-based. It's saying that I can't accept just that I'm a part of this wondrous thing. I have to be king of this wondrous thing, because unless I'm king of this wondrous thing, somebody else is going to be king of this wondrous thing, and they're going to take away this wondrous thing from me. That's not how it works. It's not how it works at all. There is no ruler in all of this. We are all parts in this magnificent creation, but you have to think logically about it. Don't just think from... I think that people rejected, for instance, you take an atheist belief, like Stephen Hawking came out and he said that he proved that there is no God because before the Big Bang there was no time for God to exist in. Stephen can't know that. It takes as much faith to be an atheist as it does to be a believer in God. So start looking logically at your life. Start, basing your faith can be a logical thing. Does what I believe make any sense? Just because something's tangible and you can touch it and you can feel it, ask yourself if it makes sense. Not because your leaders tell you this, not because anyone tells you this. Reach into your heart and say, does it make sense? Does ongoing war on this planet make sense? Does the disparity between the rich and the poor really make sense? Start asking yourself these questions, and you're going to come back with answers. You're going, that doesn't seem like that should work. Why do I feel this way about me? Why do I feel I have to be better than somebody else? We need to change our thinking from one of that we are competing with everything to one that we are cooperating with everything. This idea that the only way we can advance is by conquering something, by competing and being better than, that's not how it is. We don't need to conquer. We don't need to compete. We need to make better the whole, not just make better the individual self.
One other question for you before I let you go. Because I've got to tell you, you've got a fan club now in the chat, and a lot of people are wondering how they can get in touch with you. What is the best way to get in touch with you if they want to connect with you, if they want to share an idea with you, if they want to expand your vision or be a part of your vision? What is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
As you know, Jennifer, anyone can reach me through Facebook.
Okay.
Just
all right.
Kip Baldwin, reach out to me. I'm there every day, and even though my Facebook page is filled up, I do have like pages, or you can just I think they've got that follow thing, so we can all follow one another right now, which is really cool. And I'm an open person. Message me, say hi. I'm there all the time.
Sounds awesome. So, Kip Baldwin, I thank you very much for sharing your wisdom and your insights. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And as they're saying in the chat, where they really are relating to you and love to have you come back on the show. And you're always, it's an open invitation with me. And the chat room is loving what you're saying. So.
Well, anytime, Jennifer, I'm at your disposal, and thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate all that you do and just the tireless effort. I see how much time you spend every day sharing your wisdom and sharing your truth and sharing your love and sharing the truth and love of others. Great teachers like Rumi and just so many. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to begin, but you do such a great job of getting the word out and just tirelessly. I mean, the amount of time you spend, I'm amazed by, because I spend a lot of time, as you know, and I'm just like, my goodness, you go, Jennifer.
Well, I dabble on, all the social sites, and then I write a little bit and do so I work in between, but, you got to get the word out there, and I am here to share the love and the insights and support people. So, I'm doing my purpose. So
all I can say to everyone is just love. It's just that simple. Just love.
I was just going to say, you do have a group called Just Love on Facebook, which was a great place for them to join and find you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just Love is a page. Again, I'm there in multiple places, and anyone who wants to find me, it's really easy to do. Kip Baldwin, Just Love is another page, and just send me a message. Share thoughts. That's how we all grow.
Yes, indeed. So I'll let you get off to your meeting. Thank you again, Kip.
And thank you again, Jennifer. It was just really, really a pleasure and just a tremendous blast.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay.
And we are going to take a break now on Abstract Illusions Radio. Remember, this beautiful place we are joined is with Spirit Radio, and we are donation-based. So if you can throw some cash so we can keep the conversation going, we absolutely appreciate you. And we'll be back in a few minutes. This is Jennifer Hillman. We'll be right back. Thank you for listening.
Spirit Radio.